To title chapters or not to title chapters? That is the question of today. And as minor of an issue as it seems, I think it's one of those topics that can make a big difference in a book. And I think a lot of younger, newer writers have a tendency to title their chapters other than just chapter one, chapter two. It's kind of what a lot of old school fantasy authors did. You titled your chapters. So this will be a short video, but let's talk about that question. Let's talk about that issue. Should we title our chapters? And again, everything that I talk about is my opinion, my best observation through my own books and reading, and my friends who are also authors. My opinion is you should not title your chapters. There's a couple exceptions, and I will talk about those and give you some examples. But one of the biggest issues with titling chapters, well, there's two. Number one, it's time consuming to come up with names for chapters. If you have written a book, just think about how long it took you to figure out the title of your book. Now, for some of you, maybe it didn't take you any time at all, but I know for me, a lot of times, that's a lengthy process. It's an important process. You want people to pick up your book and have a general idea of what your book is about, or the content of your book because of the title of the book. One of the biggest letdowns is when you have a book that has a particular title and then the title seems to have nothing to do with the story within the book. If you have a book with 50 chapters and you're naming every single chapter, think about having to come up with a name for 50 different books. That can be a daunting task. And again, just like a book, you don't want to title a chapter something and then that title have nothing to do with the chapter. You could very well turn off a reader by having a chapter title that has nothing to do with the chapter itself. And what a silly thing to turn a reader away from with. So there's a couple exceptions. One of the things that an author that I really enjoy, David Estes, does. David Estes, he's the author of the Fate Mark series, and David Estes, he titles his chapters with the character point of view and the time and the place. So obviously he, in many ways, he reuses chapter titles. But it's an easy way to let the reader know what they're going to be reading, and they don't. It's not a letdown. It's not. You don't have to come up with a specific name or an intricate name for the chapter title. And the other exception is just point of view, and that's one thing that George R.R. Martin, who is the author of A Song on Ice and Fire, does really well. Is each different chapter is titled the whatever character the POV is going to be about. So those are really the only two exceptions, in my opinion, when it comes to chapter titles. Again, it's not wrong or right. I just think your time as a writer is better spent on actual writing and the content as opposed to trying to figure out what an appropriate title for a chapter is. If you decide to title your chapters, awesome. My biggest piece of advice would be just make sure that the chapter title relates to the chapter itself. I would consider, again, if you really, really want to title those chapters, consider titling them with point of view or time and place or something like that, as opposed to some other title. I hope that helps. Again, these are just my opinions, and until next time, happy reading and happy writing.